Free agency has started, and it's kind of starting to settle down a bit, or so we think. And that means it's perfect time for a mock draft. And I've done a couple at thehuddlereport.com, but I haven't done a video on here yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that today. My latest mock draft, 2024. This takes into account all the free agent moves that have happened and even a few trades. We had a trade this morning between the Minnesota Vikings and the Houston Texans, with the Vikings getting the 23rd pick in the draft and basically trading it for their second round pick and a future second round pick. And that gives the Vikings some ammunition to move up. So let's go ahead and get started. I kind of talk more about that as we get into it, but let's just get started. So picking first for the Chicago Bears, I think this one is a no-brainer. It's going to be Caleb Williams. I know Justin Fields hasn't been traded yet, but he will be at some point. He's not going to be on the Bears team. I know some people out there are like, hey, he hasn't been traded, so they're just going to keep him. That's not going to happen. Pick number 2, Washington. I think this is more and more looking like it's going to be Jaden Daniels. He seems to be the consensus number 2 rated quarterback in the draft. Fits a lot with what Cliff Kingsbury wants to do. If you look at Kingsbury's success at Texas A&M with Johnny Manziel, with Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, and even Patrick Mahomes, he's had a mobile quarterback, and I wouldn't put Mahomes in the same class as Johnny and Kyler Murray with his athleticism, but still mobile type quarterbacks. Pick 3 is where I think it gets a little interesting. I actually have the Patriots taking not Drake May. I have them taking J.J. McCarthy. The more and more information we get out, the more Drake May is falling down draft boards. Could that be just speculation and rumor and innuendo? Sure. But we see this every year. There's that quarterback that everyone thinks is the consensus, one of the top guys. And he ends up not being that. And I think that's Drake May this year. And it's a guy we saw Justin Fields a couple years ago. The second best quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence. He ends up falling to 11. We've had other guys too. I think that's going to be Drake May in this case. You're hearing some buzz out of New England that J.J. McCarthy is a guy that they like. And so that's why I think they go that route. All right, pick 4, Arizona. I have them taking Marvin Harrison Jr. I think they are a potential team to trade down. They did that last year. They traded down, ended up getting Paris Johnson Jr. So I think that's a possibility. I just don't see it at this point. I think they really want to kind of add pieces, and a guy like Marvin Harrison would give their offense that juice that they really need. Now, I mentioned earlier the trade, and I have that already done right here with the Minnesota Vikings. I have them moving up to 5 with the Chargers. Chargers are a team that I don't think they want to pick at 5 just because they don't need a quarterback. Sure, they'd love to probably get Marvin Harrison at this point, but he's probably gone. And I just think they have too many needs that they're just not going to want to pick there. And I think the Vikings are motivated to trade up. They lost Kirk Cousins. They signed Sam Darnold, but they need more help at quarterback. And so I think they're going to be aggressive. I think they traded back into the first round so that they can move up. And I think they do that. And this is where they take Drake May. So we have 4 quarterbacks going in the top 5. And I think the big maybe surprise for some is that I have J.J. McCarthy going ahead of Drake May. All right, pick 6, the New York Giants. I think they're going to take a wide receiver. I think it comes down to Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze. I know a lot of people have Malik Neighbors as the better of the two. I like Odunze better. But if you take a look at this, I look at the Giants and I say they just drafted Jalen Hyatt last year, and I know he didn't produce a ton, but he's more of that speed vertical type threat. I think they could probably use more of a difference. You don't want all the same type of guy, and so that's why I have them taking a Dunze. I think they're pretty much even for a lot of teams, and so I just think they kind of vary it up just a little bit. All right, that turns our attention now to the Tennessee Titans, who are reshaping their team under Brian Callahan. Out is Derrick Henry, in is Tony Pollard. They got Calvin Ridley at receiver, but they still need to improve that offensive line. And so that's why I think this pick is Joe Alt, the best offensive tackle in the draft. Gives them a new left tackle. They've got Peter Skorinski in at left guard. They signed a center. That offensive line is starting to shape up, and Alt could be kind of that linchpin for them. So far, we've gone all offense. We've had 4 quarterbacks gone, a couple receivers, an offensive tackle. The Falcons, I think, are the first team to go on defense, and I think they're going to take a pass rusher and Dallas Turner, a great fit for what the Falcons want out of their edge defenders, and they need one. They've got a lot of offensive firepower, especially with Kirk Cousins coming over. They need to build up that defense now, so I think they go with Dallas Turner there. All right, so that leads us to Chicago with the 9th pick. I think they're a candidate to potentially trade back to kind of accumulate some picks. They've traded their 2nd-round pick to get Montez Sweat. They traded their 5th-round, 4th-round pick now just to get Keenan Allen. So I could definitely see them moving down, maybe a team that wants to get Malik Neighbors, maybe a team that wants to move up for Fashanu or one of the other tackles. But in this case, I just have them staying put, and I have them taking Malik Neighbors. Yes, they have Keenan Allen. Yes, they have DJ Moore, but they don't have much after that. They want to give Caleb Williams a chance to be successful. Offensive tackle is a possibility, although they just drafted Darnell Wright last year. He's their right tackle. Left tackle Braxton Jones, I think, is a very solid left tackle. So I think offensive tackle isn't as big of a need, and so that's why I'm going with Neighbors. All right, so that leaves us with the New York Jets at 10. There is some smoke about Brock Bowers. I don't think that's going to be the pick. I think they're going to take Talise Fuaga out of Oregon State. Yes, Fashanu's there. I think that's a possibility, but I think Fuaga is a guy that I think teams are a little bit more high on. I think Fashanu, I'm just not a big fan of him, and I think you're starting to see more and more reports of him dropping, and so I think that's the possibility right there. All right, so that's our top 10 so far. 4 quarterbacks going in the top 5. We have 3 receivers going in the top 10 with Harrison, Odunze, and Neighbors. A couple of offensive tackles, and just 1 defender. All right, so let's move on to pick 11. This is the Chargers' first pick now after trading down from 5. And I think this is a good move for them because I don't think who they really want at 5 or who's the best player for them here would have been that good of value, because I think offensive tackle is huge. They want to, under Jim Harbaugh, we all know they want to run the ball. And I think Joe Alt is by far the best offensive tackle in this class, but I don't think he fits with what they want to do. Fuaga could potentially, but I think the guy they really want is J.C. Latham from Alabama. He just seems like the perfect guy for them. Right tackle, physical run blocker. I think he fits perfectly with what they want to do. They got Rashawn Slater on the other side, so Latham would be a good fit there. With the Denver Broncos, so as we sit here, I think quarterback, they're the other team that could really go after a quarterback. And they're kind of missed out. I mean, they got Jared Stidham currently at their quarterback spot. The guy that I think really fits them is Bo Nix, and so he is a possibility here. But that being said, that might be a little bit of a reach, and Oakland could potentially take a quarterback behind them. I don't think they're going to go in hard after Bo Nix this early. So I think the Broncos end up maybe trading back into the first round to get him, or trade up in the second round. Reports are that Jared Stidham is a guy that the Broncos and Sean Payton really like and can win with initially, so maybe they're not that desperate for a quarterback here. So I have them going interior defensive line, and I have them taking the best defensive lineman in the draft, the best defensive tackle in the draft, and that is Byron Murphy from Texas. Just give them that defensive, some pass rush from the interior. That leaves us with the the Las Vegas Raiders at 13. They're a team that I thought Byron Murphy would potentially go to, but they just signed Christian Wilkins, so I think they look to go in a different direction, and I think they go at cornerback with Terrion Arnold. He's one of my favorite players in this draft. I think one of the best defensive players in the draft. I know he didn't do very well at the Combine, but he plays fast, he plays fluid on tape, and I think that's all that matters. And so that's why you have Terrion Arnold going 13 there. Now we're sticking with a little bit of a defensive run here with the Saints. And I have the Saints going with Laiatu Latu here. The Saints definitely could go offensive tackle. They drafted Trevor Penning just recently. He hasn't really worked out, so they could go offensive tackle here. But I think defensive end, pass rusher is one of their biggest needs. And I don't think that's a thing that they can solve in free agency. And so, whereas they could get serviceable offensive tackles, potentially you can maybe get a better offensive tackle. And I think that's what they do here, is they go out and get that edge pass rusher. All right, the Colts here at 15. Once again, I think we see our defensive run. There's still a lot of talent here, but I think some of these tackles could potentially be going on a little bit of run here. But I think teams are saying, hey, the top defenders are starting to fly, so let's go in and get somebody. Quinion Mitchell from Toledo, I think would be a perfect fit in Gus Bradley's defense. Gives them a tall, long guy that could play in press man coverage, and I think he fits with what they want to do there. Continuing to stick with defense, I have the Seattle Seahawks taking Jared Verse, the defensive end from Florida State, with Mike McDonald coming in. You're going to see that defense kind of start to morph into what he wants to do. And I think Verse is a guy that is, for lack of better terms, a little bit of a versatile defensive end. He's not a true speed guy off the edge. He's more power. I think they can kind of move him around a little bit, play him in different techniques, and I think he's going to be a good fit with what Mike McDonald wants to do. All right, so we did have a bit of a run on defenders after going basically offense heavy. The first 11 picks, there was only one defender. We saw quite the change there. Picks 12 through 16, all defensive players. That makes a little stop here at 17 with the Jaguars. I see them going offensive, and I have them going after a receiver. They just lost out on Calvin Ridley. They have Christian Kirk, who's been pretty good for them, but they want Kirk to play in the slot, so they need a bigger outside receiver, and I think Brian Thomas Jr. is that guy. When I look at this draft, I see it in tiers for receivers. You have Marvin Harrison is in the top tier all to himself, and then you have Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors in that second tier, just outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., and then I think Brian Thomas is in the tier just below them. And he's in there by himself. I think he's the clear fourth best receiver in this class. Still a talented receiver. Still a very good pass catcher. He's got speed, he's got height, he's got length. I think he has a lot. I think he's still a little bit of a work in progress, and so that's why he drops a little bit further. All right, pick 18. I have them taking Fashanu from Penn State. They need offensive line help. Jonah Williams is a free agent. They're ready to move off of him. They've got Orlando. They're good at left tackle, but they could use some more help on that right side. Fashanu's been a left tackle, but he projects that he could shoot. At this stage, a lot of guys flip. It's not what it used to be. But they need some help protecting Joe Burrow. They get it right there. Sticking offensive line, this is where I have Jackson Powers Johnson going, the 19th pick to the Rams. They've got this big need for offensive line. Their starting center is gone. They've got an older quarterback. They've got weapons on the outside. They need to build up that offensive line, and I think Jackson Powers Johnson, the best center in this class. I'm not in love with him as a prospect, but he's clearly the best center in this class, and I think it's one of those situations, usually the top center, if they're deemed to be a very good one, like in this case Powers Johnson is, those guys tend to go in this type of range. All right, the offensive line run continues with the Steelers, and I have them going Amarius Mims from Georgia. I know they just took Broderick Jones last year from Georgia. Mims is very raw, only starting 8 games in his college career, but he's got a lot of potential. They're going to run the ball more with Arthur Smith. It only makes sense to build up that offensive line. And so Amarius Mims is the fit there. Now here at pick 21, there's a name that's kind of out there, Brock Bowers. I think we all agree Brock Bowers is one of the better players in this draft, but I have a hard time trying to understand where he's going to go. Because if you look at the top 10, we see a lot of wide receivers and quarterbacks going. I think pick 9 is where you start to see it, but I don't know if the Bears would go with tight end because they've already got Cole Kmet. Not that he's at the same prospect levels where Brock Bowers is. But I think teams are just going to be like, oh, yeah, tight ends don't always come in right away and make a huge impact. Look what happened with Kyle Pitts. And I just think he's due for a fall, and I just don't see a team that really just jumps out at me like, oh, they're going to go for him. And so the Dolphins sitting here at 21 make a lot of sense because I can see Mike McDaniel saying, oh, this is our guy. Offensive mastermind, tight end, H-back, put him in the slot. I think his creativeness, he's a good run blocker, can look at him as his next potential George Kittle, look at him maybe even as, use him so much, kind of like what they do with Kyle Juszczyk. And just kind of that hybrid, give him another weapon. And I just look at this offense trying to defend a team that has Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. You've got the talent that they got at running back, and it just gives them another weapon. All right, 22, the Eagles. A lot of people want to give him cornerback, but what do the Eagles do early in the draft? They take linemen. And I have them going Troy Fontenot from Washington for a couple of reasons. They have a little bit of a need at guard now. Jason Kelce has retired. Cam Jurgens, their right guard, is moving over to center. So there's kind of that need at right guard. Plus, Fontenot is a guy that could potentially move out to tackle because he's left tackle for Washington. He's got, despite being 6'4", he's got great length, great feet. This is the type of player that I think the Eagles really go after. Draft him, sit him as a backup in year 1, take him to Stoutland University, and develop him, and then he comes and he could either be a guard for them or potentially a tackle down the line when Lane Johnson, he's not getting any younger. All right, now we're back to the Chargers. So this is the pick that I had them trading back to. So they were at 5. They traded back to 11. Picked up this 23rd pick as well from the Vikings. I think it could go a lot of different directions, but I think cornerback is an area of need for them. And I think a guy like Nate Wiggins would kind of fit with what Jesse Minter has done with his defense at Michigan. And so just kind of trying to project that, I think Wiggins would give them that. You know, they were able to keep Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa. Maybe they do draft a defensive end here to help them, but I think Wiggins is a guy that's a good fit for them, so I have him going that route. All right, Dallas Cowboys. I think a guy that really fits with what they want to do is Tyler Guyton, left tackle or offensive tackle from Oklahoma. They're going to have to reshape their offensive line. They do want to get more of a run-heavy team and build up that offensive line back to what it used to be. So I think Guyton would be a guy. One of my top offensive linemen in this class. Still has some work to do, but big, athletic. I think he fits. I think he's going to be a good fit for them. Green Bay Packers at 25. We know they're going defense. That's all they do in the first round. And so you got to follow that trend. Sure, they'll probably take an offensive player this year. But I think they go defense. Their secondaries got some big holes in it. Cooper DeJean just seems like a Packer. And I know a lot of people are mocking Cooper DeJean to the Packers. It just makes too much sense. He's a guy that can play corner, can play safety. I think they need some more safety help, so maybe they put him in at safety and have him be maybe a nickel, maybe a third safety. Maybe he starts at safety, but just gives them that versatile piece that eventually ends up becoming one of their cornerbacks. But like I said, he just screams to me Green Bay Packers, so there we go. All right, Tampa Bay, I have them going offensive lineman, Graham Barton. Some needs both at guard and center. And so Barton's a guy that played left tackle at Duke, but projects more inside. A lot of people are saying he's the best center in this class, even though he's never played the position. But the Buccaneers looking to improve the interior of their defensive line. I think they go in that route. 27, the Arizona Cardinals. I do have them going defense. They got Marvin Harrison earlier in the draft. I think they go defense. I think they take Kool-Aid McKinstry, give him, he's a guy that a lot of people were early in the summer when the season first started were saying he's a top 10 pick. Didn't quite play as that. Terrion Arnold, I think, outshined him. But McKinstry does have a lot of talent, and I think there are some concerns that popped up at the combine with his foot, but I think he'll be a good fit for the Cardinals. Pick 28, the Buffalo Bills. I think they need to replenish their weapons. They lost Gabe Davis in free agency, let him go, wherever you want to call it. Stephon Diggs kind of tailed off at the end of last year. And I think Adonai Mitchell, AD Mitchell, is the next best guy. I think he gives Josh Allen a big weapon, a guy that can win over the top. He plays, I think, a very similar game to Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. I just think he's a little bit of a step back from him, but I think he'd be a great fit for what the Bills want to do. All right, a few more picks. Detroit, I have them. Offensive line could definitely be the fit, but I think they go defense. And I think they look to add some explosiveness. And so I have them going with Chop Robinson, another one of my favorite players in this draft. Explosive off the edge, long, bendy. They've got Aiden Hutchinson on one side. They just signed DJ Reader. They've got some other guys in the interior. I think they just need a little bit more explosiveness along that defensive line, and so I think Chop Robinson would be a good fit there. I would not be surprised if Chop Robinson goes earlier, just because we saw Will McDonald go to the Jets in the top 15, top 16 last year, and I think Chop Robinson is a better version of Will McDonald. All right, 30, the Baltimore Ravens. I have them taking defensive lineman Darius Robinson. I know he's an edge. Is he an edge? Is he a defensive lineman? I think he's just a versatile piece, a guy that can kind of play the 5 technique. He could play inside at the 4-eye. He could play, out even further. I think he just is another Baltimore Ravens type of guy, and I think he falls to them, gives them a good versatile defensive lineman, and continues for them to build up what they are as the Baltimore Ravens. All right, last couple picks. We have the San Francisco 49ers. I have them taking an offensive lineman. I have them taking Jordan Morgan from Arizona. I think they need more help along that offensive line. Morgan's a guy that could play tackle, could play guard. And some of those 49ers offensive line is not where they want it to be. And so Morgan, I think, not only is he one of the best linemen available in this draft at this point, but I think he's a good fit for what they want to do. And then finally, the Kansas City Chiefs. They went out and just signed Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown from the Cardinals. I think he's a guy who gives them that speed element, but I don't think they're done. And this is probably one of the most mocked players to the Chiefs. But I'm going to do it too. I'm going to take Xavier Worthy here. I think they got Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice is going to give them that possession guy, kind of what they had with Juju Smith-Schuster before he left in free agency. Rashee Rice really started to elevate himself as that possession guy. I think they need that speed yet. They wanted that speed in Kadarius Toney, but he couldn't catch a cold. They went out and got Mecole Hardman back again. Once again, they need that speed element, that explosiveness. Hollywood Brown could do it, but I think that's just a stopgap. I think Xavier Worthy would be a better fit there. And then that's our draft. Okay. So lots of picks here. I think, like I said, it kind of went in spurts. We had our quarterbacks go in the top 5. We had mainly offensive players in the top 10. We had a little bit of offensive line run in, from 18 to basically 24. But I think this is going to be a fun draft. I think these quarterbacks will be interesting. Like I said, Bo Nix could be a guy that goes in at the end of the first round or maybe in the teens. So it'll be very curious to see how this goes. Like I said, I've done a couple of these mocks already over at thehuddlereport.com. So if you want to check those out, feel free to do so. If you like this video and you want more of my content, I've got some player film rooms coming up. I've got a couple ones out there already, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that bell to get all the notifications when the new videos come out. And then make sure you're following me on social media, draft_Brian. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Till next time.